All right, so let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Naman, and I cheerfully, humbly welcome you all to our YouTube channel, that is UPSC by Naman Raj Gupta. Today, this special lecture is basically to cater to the promise that I have made in the previous lecture, that I will bring a special lecture on the previous year question on Gramsci. And this is very promising lecture for each and every one of the aspirants, because the concept of hegemony that we have discussed in the just previous lecture, right? If you guys haven't watched, I sincerely recommend you to go and watch the previous lecture, because until and unless you haven't watched and got the clarity from the previous lecture, you will not be able to understand जो आज हम discuss करने जा रहे हैं. That is why it becomes very important to maintain that conceptual clarity flow, right? So with this, let's get started. So as you can see, there were four questions till now which are being asked from Gramsci, and among these four questions, as you can see, the three questions are somewhere related to his concept of hegemony, right? They are directly asked from his concept of hegemony, right? And this is very justifiable, because anywhere if you read about the concept of hegemony, Gramsci is the most original thinker who has used the term hegemony in the political terminology, in the political parlance, basically in political science, right? So hegemony, the term, is directly associated with the Gramsci. All right, so as we have discussed in the previous lecture, that how the capitalist class uses hegemony in order to create the space in the mind of the people so as to avoid any forthcoming of the revolution that was very imminent in the places like the Western countries, where the land for the revolution was the most fertile. But still, revolution did not take in shape in those countries where it was supposed to be. This made Gramsci think, why did it not happen? And there he propounded his idea of hegemony. Today we are not talking about his concept. Today we will be mainly discussing about the previous year question and the structure. How should we approach a PYQ, right? So as we can see, all these questions are related to the concept of hegemony. We will take this latest question on hegemony, that is, according to Gramsci, hegemony primarily based on the organization of consent, right? Comment. So here the view is comment. What does this mean? They are basically focusing on your understanding of this particular question, right? How much did you understand about the Gramsci's concept of hegemony? That is what it is ought to ask from the student when it is said that comment on any topic, right? How much understanding do you have on the particular topic? This is what is supposed to be asked, right, in the question. So we have taken the first question, and we will basically divide our question into three parts, that is introduction, body, and conclusion. Why this particular structure, right? A very basic question. Because see friends, the exam, PSIR exam, is very intensive, time consuming examination, right? It is not a short descriptive answer. Here we have to attempt 20 questions, right? And on an average we have to write at least for 200 to 250 words for each and every answers. So here the preparation based on particular structuring becomes very important. Why? Because if you have your answers tailored in the manner of introduction, body, and conclusion, it will save you immense time. आपका बहुत सारा समय एग्जाम में बचेगा, क्योंकि let's say if you have an introduction to this particular question, if any question is asked related to Gramsci or the concept of hegemony, you can try fitting in this particular introduction in that question as well, right? So introduction and conclusion becomes somewhat universal, right? What matters is body, because body you have to fix according to the demand of the question, right? As in this question, the major focus is that the hegemony is primarily based on the organization of consent, comment, right? So we have to elicit that how the organization of consent plays a crucial role in establishing the hegemony of the capitalist class, right? That is why this particular structure becomes very important for us to know, right? So now let's dive deeper into this particular question, that is, according to Gramsci, hegemony is primarily based on the organization of consent, right? So they are directly giving you what hegemony means. Hegemony का मतलब क्या है, right? As it is clearly propounded by Gramsci that hegemony is primarily based on the organization of consent, where the capitalist class establishes its hegemony, which becomes very commonsensical. It becomes commonsensical for the masses, right? Commonsensical. What is commonsensical? It becomes very part of the reality. It becomes very part of the reality, part of the nature, right? This is how they make sure that their extreme exploitative nature do not surface. The people do not able to develop their true consciousness. The people, they do not be able to develop into the class in itself, into the class for itself, right? So this is just the brief idea. If you want to know further about the concept of hegemony, go and watch the previous lecture. There we have discussed in it very descriptive manner. All right, so how we will try attempt an introduction this for this particular question, right? How introduction will look like for this particular question. So basically, hegemony or the hegemon is very universal idea, right? So it is like top to bottom approach. We have to start with the top. What is the broad idea? So broad idea is about hegemony, right? So you have to give a basic idea about hegemony. So as we can see on the board that hegemony derives from a Greek term hegemonia, right? It was primarily used by the Greek thinkers, right? Which basically meant the dominance over, right? As we knew how the Greek society was a city state, right? So as in today's term we call a sovereign, right? We use the term sovereign. There it was used as a hegemony, where a city state has a hegemony over its people, right? Over the other principalities. This is what it meant to be, राइट? ये इसका मतलब था. जैसे आज के टाइम पे हम बोलते हैं दैट इंडिया इज अ सॉवरेन नेशन, राइट? देयर इट वाज अ सिटी स्टेट व्हिच वाज, लेट्स से इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्लेटो की हम बात करें तो उसका एथेंस जो था उसका सिटी स्टेट था, राइट? सो एथेन इज एन हेजेमोनिया. Hegemonia in the sense the state of Athens, the city state of Athens will have a dominance, right? Dominance over the other principalities. This is what they meant, right? The dominance of the city state. It is the meaning of hegemonia, the original Greek term, right? Its use in political analysis was somewhat limited until its intensive discussion by Italian politician and Marxist philosopher Antonio Gramsci. This is how you will bring Gramsci into the picture, right? How we are bringing Gramsci into the picture, because for us Gramsci is important, right? We have to see the concept of hegemony from Gramsci's point of view, right? So this is how we will connect from the universal idea of hegemony to how Gramsci came into the picture, right? So the use of the term in political analysis was majorly done by a Marxist philosopher, that is Antonio Gramsci, right? So this is how we will start with the introduction. Now introduction, like at least 2 to 3 lines will be suffice for the answer, right? Whether it is 150 words or 250 words, it will do justice. Major focus should be on body, right? Body should be very inclusive. Body must be very inclusive. Inclusive in the sense it should cover the important ideas with highlights, right? Because evaluator के पास उतना time नहीं होगा. They do not have this convenient of time that they will go and read the point by point answers. No, they will just have a look, have a glimpse of the highlighted words, and if they find that yes, this answer has all the list of highlights and words and etc pertaining to the particular concept, pertaining to the particular question, they will understand yes, this is a quality answer, and they will give you more than average marks. This is why I focus more on highlighting important things, and this is how you can also learn how to highlight, how to mention certain terminology, certain statements, certain quotations. Very imperative for a PSIR student. Okay, so how body will look like. So Gramsci's understanding of hegemony goes beyond mere coercion or domination and delve into the realm of cultural and ideological control, right? So just to give you an idea, what is the essence of cultural and ideological culture in the dissemination of hegemony? This is what Gramsci was majorly concerned about, right? as in the concept of base and superstructure model of Marx's major focus was on economic determinism, right? That economy is the basic structure and all the superstructures are the reflection of the basic structure, right? But here Gramsci also brings cultural and ideological essence into the picture, right? Because he was influenced, I hope he was influenced by the Italian thinker Benedetto Croce, right? So just focus on the content that is written on the board. I am just giving you also some of the details so that you keep this also in your mind, right? Because if you remember the story, you will not have to by heart the content, right? So here the coercion, the hegemony usual definition, that is coercion or domination, is not very important. The important thing is the idea of Gramsci of how the cultural and ideological control that he had on the concept of hegemony, right? So Gramsci argues that ruling class maintains their power and not solely through force and coercion, right? Not only through the hard power, but by establishing cultural and intellectual leadership over the society, right? This is what we have discussed. This cultural and intellectual leadership enables them to shape world view, values, beliefs of the broader population, ultimately gaining their voluntary consent to the existence social order, right? So this is how the term organization of consent comes into play. So the capitalist class, not only through the hard power, not only through the coercion, but through the hegemony, by bringing cultural and ideological factor into play, they bring the concept, they organize the consent of the masses, so as their idea becomes a worldview, their idea becomes a common sense for the masses as well, right? They will start relating to the idea of what? They will start relating to the idea of capitalist ideology. The best example is liberalism, right? The best example is welfareism. So this is how we will start with the body. Now we will dive deeper into the concept, right? How hegemony operates through the construction of a dominant ideology that presents the interest and value of the ruling class as universal and natural, right? This ideology becomes embedded in social fabric, influencing people's perception, judgment, and behavior, right? What three important key term is important for us? Basically, it influences people's perception, judgment, and behavior, right? Why? Because the dissemination of hegemony idea by the dominant class, that is capitalist class, वो इतना important हो जाता है, वो इतना engrave हो जाता है कि it influences the decision making power of the power of the workers, right? Power of the masses, राइट वो आइडियोलॉजी उनके दिमाग में इतना डीपली इनग्रेव्ड हो जाता है, इतना डीपली बैठ जाता है कि जो रिवॉल्यूशन का सोच मासेस सोच रहे होते हैं, वो जो हेजेमनी आइडिया होता है वो उसमें पानी फेर देता है, राइट? द कैपिटलिस्ट क्लास डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली दे स्टार्ट इन्फ्लुएंसिंग द परसेप्शन, द जजमेंट एंड बिहेवियर ऑफ द masses, right? It is disseminated and reinforced through various institutions such as education, media, religion, organization, and cultural production, right? You can draw this particular diagram and you can also choose to avoid this particular thing, right? You can directly draw this a particular example and you can just mention here responsible for dissemination, right? Responsible for dissemination of hegemony idea, right? So this is the civil society, which basically constitute of education institution, media, religious organization, cultural production, and etc., right? So this is how we went further deep into the concept, right? Who is the responsible? And Gramsci in his theory of hegemony has clearly propounded the role of civil society in propagating the dominant idea, right? Dominant idea of the capitalist class. So by influencing the dominant culture and shaping the narrative, the ruling class creates a sense of normalcy and legitimacy around its power and privileges, right? So the one word is that the common sense. They disseminate, they propagate their ideology to the point that it becomes common sense for the people. वो इतनी इनग्रेवली अपनी एजेंडा, अपने प्रोपेगेंडा को प्रोपेगेट करते हैं कि वो लोगों के लिए, वो मासेस के लिए एक कॉमन सेंस बन जाता है, राइट? दिस इज व्हाट इट सेज। एंड एक बार ये कॉमन सेंस बन जाता है, द पावर, द अथॉरिटी, द एक्सप्लॉइटेशन बाय द कैपिटलिस्ट क्लास, लोगों को वो नॉर्मैलिटी, लोगों को वो लेजिटिमेट लगने लग जाता है, राइट। वॉट एवर प्रिविलेज पावर दे ऑपरेट ऑन द मासेस, लोगों को वो काफी ज्यादा नॉर्मल लेजिटिमेट लगने लग जाता है, राइट। द आइडिया एंड वैल्यूज प्रोपगेटेड बाय द रूलिंग क्लास बिकम्स डीपली इनग्रेन्ड इन पीपल्स कॉन्शियसनेस, राइट, कॉन्शियसनेस, it becomes deeply engraved, right, and it starts influencing the behavior, perception, right, of the individual, often to the point where they are seen as common sense or unquestionable truths, right. This is what the essence of this particular paragraph is there, right, that the domination, the propagation of the hegemonic idea becomes so intense that at a certain point it becomes a natural truth, it becomes a common sense, right, that yes, liberalism is good for each and every one of us, right. As a result, individuals willingly participate in maintaining an existing social order, right. What was the social order? Basically the capitalist society, even if it may not serve their own interest, right, even if it is leading to the exploitation of the workers. That this is what we can see in the Western countries like US and etc., right. There the working hours, the working conditions are so intense, it is so exploitative that the people themselves are not realizing their true material conditions, right. Why? Because of the common sense, because of the hegemonic idea of liberalism, welfareism that the capitalist society have created over the masses, over the workers, right. So Gramsci emphasizes that the organization of consent is not a passive acceptance of domination, but an active process, right. Here again, the passive and active the term becomes very, very important. The organization of the consent is not a passive process, rather it is an active process in which people internalize and reproduce the dominant ideology, right. It will get internalized to the point where people themselves will become a instrument of propagation, right. Let's say if I am influenced by the idea of capitalist thought, right, that welfareism, liberalism is a great idea, right, it will be so deeply ingrained in my brain, वो मेरे दिमाग में इतने हद तक बैठ जाएगा कि मैं अपने सामने वाले लेबर को एक्सप्लॉइट होते देखूंगा भी तो मैं उसको ऐसे बोलूंगा कि नो, लिबरलिज्म, वेलफेयरिज्म इज अ गुड, कैपिटलिज्म इज अ गुड, दे ऑलवेज थिंक अबाउट आवर वेलफेयर, राइट. दिस इज व्हाट इट मीन्स. So this was all about the body. We have covered the important term, that hegemony, and what was it meant by Gramsci. Then we have seen how civil society is responsible for propagation of the idea, right, and what are its influences on the masses, right. Now how we can conclude it? However, it is important to note that Gramsci also recognizes the potential for resistance and counter hegemonic movement, right. So Gramsci, in his theory of the intellectuals, right, organic intellectuals and etc., he will also emphasize on the importance of counter hegemonic movements, right. So if the capitalist society have created their hegemony, have created its hegemony, the proletariat class, the worker class will also have to establish its counter hegemonic movement, right, so that whatever hegemony is created in the society is nullified. The best example is India itself, right. So whatever hegemonic idea that was created in the minds of Indians by the Britishers, right, white man's burden, right, benevolent despotism, right, even like the prominent figures like the Jyotiba Phule and etc., they have said that the British power is better than the Maratha Raj and etc., right. Why? Because of the hegemony that was created by the Britishers, right. So what Gandhiji did, Gandhiji basically established his counter hegemonic movement by making people realize that this hegemony is nothing but a false consciousness. वो एक illusion है जो ब्रिटिश के द्वारा क्रिएट किया जा रहा है लोगों को भ्रम में रखने के लिए, राइट. दिस इज व्हाट गांधीजी डिड ऑलमोस्ट फॉर 50 to 70 years, right, and which ultimately accumulated into the Quit India movement in the late 1940s. That is what is the importance that Gramsci will also propound when it comes to the counter hegemonic movement. He acknowledges that the establishment of consent is not absolute or unchallenged, right. It can always be challenged by again establishing a counter-hegemonic movement. Subaltern groups and organic intellectuals have the potential to contest and subvert dominant ideology, right? Again, I said he is saying that the subaltern group, right, the people who are basically exploited, the working class, right, they can also challenge the established dominant ideology of capitalist class. How? By again starting their own counter hegemonic movement, fostering alternative narrative and fostering counter hegemonic consciousness, right? So it is basically a tug of war between what, between whom, between the capitalist ideology and the whom, and the proletariat or workers ideology. He is saying that if capitalists, they are propagating their own dominant ideology, workers should also propagate theirs, right? So that the people, the masses will realize their true sense. They will not be influenced by the false narrative of the capitalist class, right? This is how the class consciousness, right, class consciousness of the workers or the masses will be developed, right? And ultimately it will lead to what? Class in itself, to class for itself. And this is how the revolution will take place, right? So this is how a answer will do justice to the question, right? We have seen this particular question in very holistic manner, and with this we are done with this particular lecture, people. My basic idea was to make you all aware. मैं आप सबको ये बताना चाहता था कि कैसे हम एक particular question को approach कर सकते हैं, right? We have seen a approach like that is from top to bottom, right? You hold the universal idea, then you become very concise, right? You become very precise to the point, right? And this is how it will lead to a qualitative answer, right? And also enhance you or fetch you better marks score than your competitors, right? So this is how you can ensure your maximum marks in the PSIR exam. With this, thank you so much for watching. Keep watching, keep revising, people. And for content, you can take directly from the slide, and also I will make sure to share the PDF in my Telegram channel. I will mention in the link. If you want to go and subscribe to the channel, go and follow it. There I will be sharing all the PDFs and etc, right? Also ensure to show your love by subscribing to the channel, that is UPSC by Naman Raj Gupta. And also like the video, so as this particular video can reach to the maximum needy people who need it in the particular movement, right? So with this, thank you so much. Keep watching, keep striving. Until next time, this is your friend, guide and host Naman Raj Gupta signing off.